Hey everyone, Carmen here.
Hi, ladies. Deidre here. If you haven't met us yet, we're the co founders of Encore Empire, where we take the guesswork out of scaling your online business for results that you can't get with any other coaching program. We are committed to providing you with the strategies, systems, and support you need to build a profitable business.
That's right. So last week, if you tuned into our live learning last week, we spoke about the importance of viewing your business through different vantage points of focus, goal setting, and visioning. So go back and watch that one if you haven't. It's a good one as well. So today we're going to dive into another critical aspect of ensuring that you're on track, and that is productivity metrics.
Okay. So let's not start the eye rolling. So this is going to be super helpful for you guys. And for those of you who are here with us live, type hashtag live. And if you're watching the replay, type hashtag replay. That way we know who's here. Say hello. And if you have questions or aha moments as we go, drop them below this video. All right. So let's talk about knowing your numbers. Now, when it comes to business, you need to know certain numbers. So what we're going to talk about is what do you need to track in general? Now, there are some basic things that every business should track, and then there are going to be some customized goals and numbers that your business needs to track. And this really depends on your business model, what your goals are, and what you're trying to achieve and when you're trying to achieve them. But we're going to talk about like the general things and the basics that everyone needs to be aware of and needs to have a way of tracking. So some of the basic numbers to know on a monthly basis. There are four basic numbers, and so I'm going to say what they are, and then we're going to talk a little bit about each one. So the first one is your leads and your audience or your followers. The second is your conversion rates. The third is sales, and the fourth is revenue versus profit. All right. And I promise that this is going to be easy. This is not going to be an accounting 101 lesson. All right. So leads and audience, your followers. Let's talk about that for a minute. So it may seem really difficult. Like, well, how do I know how many leads I have, or how many, how many followers do I have? What does my audience look like? Well, there are some metrics that you have that you may or may not be aware of. So for example, if you have an email list and you have an opt-in where people are opting in and you're growing your email list. So email subscribers, that would be inside of your email autoresponder, right? So you can see exactly how many email opt-ins you're getting. If you have a Facebook group, you can measure growth. And that's basically what we're talking about here, measuring growth by like how many new Facebook members do you have? You can also look at how many people are following you on other social media platforms. And what we're talking about here is we are trying to establish, are you growing? Are the things that you are doing and spending your time on when it comes to marketing and all of the content that you put out and how you're serving your audience, is it helping you grow? That's really the bottom line of what we want to know. And we want to be comparing these numbers on a month-to-month basis. So the second one is your conversion rate. Now, conversion rate can be for many things. It could be for like opt-ins on a sales page or a lead magnet page, for example. So this could also be for sales. So basically what we're doing is we are looking at how many, let's take a sales page, for example, how many people are viewing it, and then how many sales did you make? So what we do is we take the number of sales. So let's say that you're doing a brand new program and you're putting the page out there. So how many sales did you get from it divided by how many views, like how many people viewed it and how many sales? That's telling you what is your conversion rate. We can do this exact same thing for leads and prospects. So for example, those of you who've been through our marketing methodology workshop, we track our conversion rate on how many people register versus how many people participate. That's a conversion rate. We want to know, like, out of how many people are registered, how many of those people are actually engaging and getting the result that we've set them up for during that workshop. And we track this each and every time because we want to ensure that what we're doing is effective. Okay. And that's really what conversion rates are all about. It also lets you know if you have a goal, like let's say that you're doing a conversion event and you want to have 10 sales by the end of that conversion event. By knowing how many people do you need to register in order to get those 10 sales? Well, that seems like an impossible equation, right? Like, how do I even figure that out? But when you track over time these basic numbers we're talking about, you're going to know. It's also about if you enroll into your program or services through a discovery call, you can log how many calls are you getting on and how many of those are converting to sales. That's a conversion rate. So by knowing this, it's really powerful information. It helps you build in the sustainability into your revenue that we are all looking for. So then that leads us to sales. We'll talk about sales for a minute. So you want to know what your sales are, and you want to know compared to another period, right? So you want to make sure that you're growing. Now, you may not grow from month to month. It's probably not going to be a steady line. It usually isn't, because it depends on what else you've got going on and how many conversion events are you having and are they effective. So can you see how all this ties together? Like knowing these conversion rates, knowing if your audience is growing, all that leads to, are your sales increasing? So this, by knowing these numbers in these 4 specific areas, or these 3 that we've talked about, it really allows you to see what's going on. And if you're not hitting the goal you set for yourself, instead of just like changing this, changing that, thinking, well, I'll try this now, it gives you allows you to have an informed decision, right? Like, okay, I can see that my sales are down and my conversion rates are fine, but I see that my audience is not growing. Like I'm not getting new people. It's the same people seeing the same thing over and over again. So maybe that is where the issue is. And that's how you know where you're going to focus. And that's why this is all tying into productivity metrics. We want to know, where are we going to be spending our time and where do we need to focus our productivity? So the 4th area is revenue versus profit. Now, if you haven't heard us talk about this before, these 2 are not the same thing. They are not interchangeable. Revenue is the total amount of money coming in. Profit is what's left over after you've paid for everything. So that's it in its simplest form. When you hear people talking about having a 20K month, or I just hit mid 6 figures, they are usually talking about revenue. And that is, it doesn't really tell you anything, honestly, because a 7-figure business, let's talk about a business who's hit $1 million. Well, guess what? The owner of that company is not taking home that million. It's not going to their bank account. I absolutely guarantee it. And it's because there is a lot of expense associated, and it varies and depends on your model. And we work with coaches and consultants and service providers. And the good news is we tend to have a higher percentage of profit because our overhead is not as high as some other business models. But the bottom line is the profit is what really matters. And so that's what we really want to be tracking. Like, is your profit, is it keeping up with the revenue increases, with the sales increases? Because if your sales are going up, your revenue is going up, but your profit's going down, well, we need to then take a look at why is that happening? Because maybe there's something in here. It could just be a growth. Maybe you're investing for growth, but it could also be that something is off and that we need to build a strategy in order to make sure that profit is continuing to move up month after month.
That's right. So I hope you can see how important this is. And we're talking about productivity metrics and metrics in general, because they are data. We talk about this too, removing the emotion from your business and the way that you see your business and looking at the data and letting the data help you make your decisions. So now let's talk about the percentage of time that you spend and what areas you focus on. So your priorities and the percentages change based on where you are in business. For example, a new business owner might have a 50-50 split, meaning 50% of activities need to be revenue generating because they're brand new. They don't have any yet, right? They're a brand new business. They need clients, they need revenue, they need customers, whatever it is. And so then everything else that they have to do for that business fits into the other 50% of their time. As you get clients, your total time available changes because you still need to be spending 50% in revenue generation. But now we're talking about the time you have left after serving your clients. So let's say serving your clients takes up 30% of your total time of 100. Now you've got 60% left. And so you need to use half of that 50% or half of that 60%, which is 30%. I don't want to confuse anyone here, but you get it. So your clients now, when you get clients, they take the first piece of the pie, right? You are serving your clients because you want them to be happy. You want more clients, but you still have to focus on revenue generating activities. So after you've spent the time serving your clients, then whatever's left over, we still do the 50-50 split. Now, when scaling, let's say you're doing that, your clients are thrilled, you're tracking your metrics, you're understanding how this is going, and so you're ready to scale. You want to maybe double your revenue and your profit. So when you're scaling, you will likely have a team. And that means there are more people to make the percentages work because we're scaling and we're growing. Scaling means growing. We're going to want to go back up to the 50-50 split, which is 50% revenue generating and the rest falls into the other 50%. But you as the business owner will not be doing that on your own anymore. When you're scaling, when you're ready to do that and you have a team, you have other people that factor in. So potentially, one example is you as the business owner will still be focused on sales. It's very critical that every business owner understands how to make sales in their own business. One mistake that we see is people get really excited to hire that out because people don't want to do sales. They don't want to feel salesy. And so they're like, oh, I'm going to hire a salesperson. But think about this. If you don't know how to make sales of your own product and service, how are you going to train someone else to do it? And even if someone comes in they have a great track record of making sales, they have to get guidance from you. So you always want to have your hand in the sales pie a little bit, no matter what, but you might have a sales team when you're scaling. And so then they can take on a bigger portion of that than you are. And so you might be wondering, the topic of today's live learning is the essentials of productivity metrics. And how does all this talk about numbers fit into the topic of productivity? So developing a plan and tracking your activities ensures that you are on track to meet your goals. So it's easy to be productive without being effective or efficient. And Dieter's going to talk a little bit about that in a second here. Busy work won't move your business forward. And we all can get stuck in busy work. I should be doing this, but I can do this quicker and easier. I'm just going to focus here. When we get off track as to where we're focusing our time, we start losing the effectiveness and the efficiency in what we're doing. So you've got to have a strategy and focus on the intentional activities that will move your business forward. And that leads us into time tracking.
And when Carmen and I first got started with, even though this is not our first rodeo on our own, when we got together and we created Encore Empire, we were building a brand new business. And so we were doing all the things and we were, kind of like, what do they call it? Tag teaming.
Yeah.
We kind of hand things off to each other and we were working in that way. When you're the only one in the beginning, like you're doing all those things. Mm-hmm. But then you get to this point and we were doing what we just talked about. We were spending a lot of our time in revenue generation because we didn't have clients on day one, right? We didn't have any. So we had a lot more time available to really, get our content put together, to get our conversion events put together, to get our programs outlined. And that's natural. That's where we all have to start. However, you need to not stay there. We see all too often people stay there for like a year or a year and a half. We really want to get to that revenue generation, because that is the validation. That is, we have to validate that. There's no point spending a whole ton of time building, creating, and guessing our way through it when we haven't gotten the validation. So I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and she said something I really love. She said, you've got to learn to fail fast, right? That's the whole point, is fail fast. Like, it's gonna happen. It's how you learn, and just get over it and move on. So that's where we start in the beginning. But then what happens is that then we start to get clients, and then our time shrinks, right? Because we still have all that. We were busy working, a full week before clients. Now all of a sudden we have clients. It's like, okay, so now what do we do? So the choice is, do you work more? Like, do you go from a 40-hour week to a 60-hour week? Or do we want to take a look at this and work a little smarter and not harder? So we decided that we needed some help. So we were going to hire virtual assistants and get some help on the back end. Well, we realized in that first round of doing it that we weren't exactly sure what. We knew we needed help, but we weren't sure what kind of help or where we needed help or what were they going to do. And so we jumped to getting a virtual assistant, and they were like, oh, okay, well, now we got to figure out what they're going to do. And so we were giving them things to do. And then we found out it takes some time to do all that planning and all that onboarding and all that training to get them, to do the things that you need to do. And so we really weren't hitting the mark on saving time for ourselves. So what we decided to do after that, this was the lesson learned. We failed fast, and we learned that we needed to know precisely where was our time going. And so we're going to talk about time tracking. Now, some of you may be going, oh, I don't, that's going to be such a pain. I don't want to track my time. That's just like, so, it's just so constricting. Now, let me tell you, I'm all about, free flow. Like, I have free flow Friday. Okay. So that's my day. Like, that's my day to like not be, super tied into like a schedule. But what we found with time tracking is it actually has some benefits that we're going to talk about here in just a minute. What time tracking allows you to do is to see the impact of what you're doing. And it allows you to determine, can you tie your actions to the revenue generation? Can we tie it to those basic numbers we talked about in the very beginning? Because if you can't see the correlation, like if we determine, oh, we need more sales, we need more profit, we have to know what are we going to do about that? And it usually takes more time, right? Or it takes a shift in focus to those activities that are going to generate the sales. So maybe it's not the best time to go and, take some brand new course on learning, how to optimize your WordPress website. Like, this might not be the time. If you need sales, then that's what you need to be doing. So time tracking kind of lets you see this higher level, vantage point of where's the time going. Another real benefit that we found is that it helps us stay in one context at a time. This way, you're not getting thrown off by shiny objects, or you're not spending too much time in one area, and you're not switching hats constantly. Like, I know that totally throws me off when I'm having to, like, if I'm jumping over here and checking email, and then I'm running over here and looking at Facebook Messenger, and then in the meantime, I'm trying to like create this new content for clients. Like, like you can't be. It's like your brain has to switch too many times, and then you're not being efficient or effective at all. The other thing we can get into is like, we see this new, we discover some new strategy that we want to test out, like some new marketing strategy. Like, ooh, this looks pretty cool. We should try this and see how it works. And so then we get all involved in it, right? Like, that becomes the thing. It's what you're going to be doing, and you're all into it. And you're so excited. But what's happening is that you are not then spending the time in the revenue generation areas that you need to. Or maybe you're pushing off some client work when I can get to that later. I really want to do this thing over here because this looks really cool. And then it creeps up, right? Then you're like, ooh, now I got to do catch up. And so 2-3 weeks go by, you haven't done revenue generation activities that you're supposed to. And what happens? The sales dry up, right? Like it's going to come back to bite you at some point when we don't have this consistency. So this really helps you set boundaries. It's like having a budget, like a money budget. It's a time budget, basically. But we can't set that budget of saying, okay, I'm only going to spend this amount of time doing this thing, or I'm only going to read blog posts for so long, give yourself your 30 minutes and that's it. We can't do that if we don't know what's going on and where's your time going. So some other benefits of this is it gives you a sense of control. Now, I know this sounds completely opposite, right, of how it feels, right? It feels like you're being very constricted. But that control that you get is that all of a sudden you can see where your time has gone, what you've been doing, and what are the results that are coming from it, and you can change it. And that's where the control comes in, because you're like, I don't really like the result, or I need a better result. Now it's in your control, instead of how we normally feel like, I just don't have time. There's 1,000 things to do, and I just don't have time to get it all done. That's how we normally operate, right? But this brings that control back to you. It also, and Carmen and I both found this when we did our time tracking, we decided to do this for 2 weeks, 2 solid weeks. We were going to do time tracking. It gave us a sense of satisfaction. We could look back and go, oh, wow, look at all we did. Look at all we accomplished. So you get that sense. Otherwise, you just get to the end of the week and you just know that you did a whole lot and you're tired and you're sure something happened that was good, but you couldn't really articulate what that was, right? This way, you know for sure. This also gives you confidence in knowing you can achieve a goal with the right amount of time allotted to it. A lot of times we get frustrated when we don't hit our goals, right? And what do we initially think? Well, I just don't have enough time for all of this, or it's just me. I'm just not good at this, or I just am never going to, why can't I hit my goals? I just can't, there's something wrong with me. That's where our mind goes, right? This eliminates that because you have data to look at. You can see, oh, well, it didn't happen because I didn't spend enough time. And it's not because there's anything wrong with me. It's just that I was doing these other things. So now let me rearrange all this. Let me change what I'm going to be spending time on and adjust these percentages of time I'm spending in these areas. And when you have the time you need to do what you need to do, you are going to be so much more relaxed and you are going to get a much better result from it. Now, one last thing that this will help you do, and is this kind of highlights your own patterns. Like, have you ever noticed, if you have a dip in energy, what do you default? Carmen, do you know what your default is when you get tired?
Yeah, I will start allowing myself to get sucked into my social media streams, Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. And I'll just pretty soon, you're tired, but then pretty soon a half an hour's gone by and what have I done? Nothing. I've just been scrolling through the internet and that's no good.
Yeah. So one of mine is, and you guys too, let us know in the comments, like what's your go-to? Like when you get tired, like what do you know that you're going to do, that you default to when you kind of get tired during the day? One of mine is like, I go into like learning mode or research mode. Like, I'm like, I want to look up and see how this thing works, or I'm going to look at this course that I haven't seen, or I'm going to get this audio book. Like, I have to stay away from Amazon because I will definitely buy stuff like, that's when I'll buy books and like something will pop in my head and, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go shopping. So I'll be scrolling on Amazon for like an hour.
Yeah.
So the whole point of why we're talking about these productivity metrics, and we're trying to give you some ideas and some insights to help you help yourself. And we challenge you to really look at doing this time tracking. I like to call it a time audit as well. Like, it's about, there's no judgment here, right? Like this is just about getting down on paper, like what's really going on, like what's really happening without judgment, so that you can see, and then you can take that control and plan and say, okay, I see that I spent time here. Was it really the best use of my time? Am I getting the result I want? If I am, great, I'll keep doing it. But if not, then I'm going to switch over. And
Mhm.
this helps you optimize your schedule. This helps you stop that. And I think we have this problem when we are working from home too. Like it's like the day never ends, right? It's like you wake up and you're working, and you go to bed and you are finishing off something. It feels like there's no end to the day. And so this allows you to be really intentional about how much time are you going to spend. You get to choose. It's your business. So you get to decide, how much time do I want to work? And then let's make it work inside of that schedule. I can tell you, I don't know how many entrepreneurs that have built very successful businesses, and they are not working 60 hours a week to do it.
Mhm.
You don't have to. It's all about the strategy, and it's all
Mhm.
about how you are, when you understand these metrics that we're talking about, and you are very intentional about how you're setting up your schedule, you can work 25 hours a week. If you're, caring for an aging loved one, or maybe you still have a part-time job, whatever your situation is, you can make it work. Carmen and I both built businesses at when we worked full time
Mhm.
in other jobs. And it is really just about what we're talking about here. It's about knowing where your time goes, tracking it, and making adjustments accordingly.
That's right. And I'm going to just add, when we knew that we had to hire someone, and then we were like, well, we need to figure out what we're going to give them. And what are we doing every day? There's two of us. So Deidre does some things, I do another thing. We're working on different things, which some people think, oh, it's easy for you guys. There's two of you. Well, there's two sides to that coin. There's an easy side because there's two of us. And then there's another side because there's two of us to manage. There's two of us to manage our time. There's two of us to pay. There's not just one, so we have to make sure that our efforts are impactful so that we're getting the revenue and profit that we need. But I thought, oh, I don't want a time track. Like, I knew it would be valuable. So I'm like, okay, I will commit to these 2 weeks to see where my time is going. And then I think we kind of hung on to it for a little bit, and then we kind of dropped it. I dropped it anyway, and I stopped doing it. And then just recently, Deidre and I were talking about it, going, man, I don't know where my time's going. And it's like, we need to go back to time tracking. And now, this second time that we're doing it, this is time is going to stick because we are embracing it. It feels so good to look at my day and see everything that I've done instead of the fog of big giant question marks over my head. Like, I don't know. I know I wrote the email this week, and I know I did this, and I know I worked here, and I know I did a little bit of this, but it seems like I did so much more, but I can't put my finger on what that was. That kind of stuff is energy depleting. We want to make sure that we know so that we can make informed decisions and not sit there and cause our self-confidence and self-worth to lower because we're not sure what's going on, right? I mean, being the CEO of your business means we've got to get into what we're doing and be intentional about it. And these tools that we're talking about are going to help you do just that. So, we also have a really awesome productivity playlist on our YouTube channel that we'd like to let you guys know about. If you want to get more into different topics related to productivity in your business, head over to encoreempire.com/productivity.
Great, ladies. Thank you so much. We will see you next Tuesday for live learning, same time, same place.
Bye.